What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got another PJ Harvey reaction for you. Let England Shake, one of our most popular albums, brought to us by our friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Mark. Always appreciate you, Mark. Mark has previously brought us the album reacted to a little while back. Trey and I reacted to Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. Really enjoyed that one. So let's dive into this one, do a little bit of quick facts, and then we'll get to the album. This is our 8th studio album released in February of 2011 by Island Records. It was written over a 2.5-year period, recorded in 5 weeks at a church in Dorset during April and May of 2010. Was their second album to reach the UK top 10 and the first in 18 years. What an accomplishment since Rid of Me. This album is so critically acclaimed. It was placed 2011 Album of the Year by 16 different publications, and in September of 2011 won the coveted Mercury Prize. It was PJ's 4th nomination overall, including the album we did before, the winner, which won Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, making her the most successful artist in the prize's history. Also won the Uncut Music Award in November of 2011, as well as the Album of the Year at the 2012 Novello Awards. You talk about something that is well acclaimed. PJ began writing the lyrics for the album before setting the words to music. She has cited the poetry of Harold Pinter and T.S. Eliot as influence, as well as the artwork of Dali and Francisco de Goya. The music of The Doors, The Pogues, and The Velvet Underground, those are 3 good places to go, and the films of Stanley Kubrick, Ken Loach, and Ari Folman. She's also spoken of researching the history of conflict, including the Gallipoli campaign, and reading modern-day testimonies from civilians and soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. She did an interview with the Bridgeport News. She explained she did an enormous amount of research for the project, and the writing process took about 2.5 to 3 years because of that. Here was her quote, and it really sets the tone for this album. She said, I read lots of books on war from all different eras. I read about war in a philosophical way. I read about it from all angles. I did lots of research on English history. I looked at the way other artists have spoken about England. I did a lot of internet research. I watched lots and lots and lots of documentaries with interviews of people who had actually been there. Interviews with World War I soldiers right up to present-day interviews with Afghani people to produce the broad spectrum. I just tried to absorb as much information as I could. I looked at lots of artwork, lots of painting. For instance, Dali's Spanish Civil War era and Goya's Disasters of War series. That's just 2, but there were many different angles that I looked at. Lots of photography and lots of current day photography, where I came across a photographer called Seamus Murphy, who spent the best part of 10 years in Afghanistan. Seamus actually did a bunch of videos for this album. I was extremely moved by an exhibition I saw of his called A Darkness Visible. So much that I actually got in touch with him because I wanted to speak to him more about his experiences being there in Afghanistan. The whole time I was writing, trying to get the voice right, and I suppose what I kept coming back to was that the place I did feel qualified to speak from was a very simple human, emotional point of view, because we are all human. We all feel these things, or you can feel how it would have been for somebody in that situation. You know how much your heart can break after watching a documentary about someone else's misfortune. A soldier who's been in these terrible situations, or a man who has lost his wife, blown up by a suicide bomber, and you feel it's very human. During some solo shows some years prior to working on this album, she began playing the auto harp. She told British newspaper Bridgeport News again in 2011, I was really enjoying this different, enormous, wide breadth of sound that the auto harp gives. It's quite a delicate sound, but it's also like having an entire orchestra at your fingertips. I began by writing quite a lot on the auto harp, and then slowly as time went by, my writing started moving into experimenting with different guitars and using different sound applications, one that I never really experimented with. When they asked her about her vocal style on the album, she said, I couldn't sing the songs in a rich, strong, mature voice without it sounding completely wrong. So I had to slowly find the voice, and this voice started to develop, almost taking on the role of a narrator. A little bit more on where she recorded. She recorded, as I mentioned at the start, at St. Peter's Church. It was recorded over 5 weeks. Much of the record was recorded live, and she has described the recording as reasonably improvisational, commenting, I wanted to leave room for them so they could bring their feelings into it as well. Usually I would have planned everything and known what instrumentation I wanted. This time I demoed the songs mostly with 1 or 2 instruments with a voice, and that is as much as I had. So I basically had the chords and a couple of saxophone melodies, a couple of voice melodies, and that was what I took with me to the church. The album features her first on-record use of the saxophone. As I said, all the tracks are written by her. Before we get started, a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I'm an American. I live in the United States, and I did a lot of research for this album. You only got a little snippet of it there, and I'll mention some things during the songs, but I'm not going to understand this as well as someone in England is going to, right? Because it's about English history, the atrocities of war, her love affair with England, but also her troubles with its past. I have much the same feelings about the United States for sure. But I just wanted to say that before we get started. I'll have the lyrics up as always. The music will not be in here, but check out the Vimeo link below where you can watch along with me. Thank you, Mark. I much look forward to this album considering the critical acclaim that it has. And we're going to start this thing off with the title track, Let England Shake. Wow, Let England Shake. I'll say that when it started out to me about 1 minute, he used to PJ's vocal delivery, because that's not, I don't know a ton of her stuff, but we did do that one album, and I've heard some of her songs on some of the live streams we do over on Twitch. It took me a second or a minute to get used to it, but then once I got used to it, I really liked it. The xylophone part, there's a xylophone, it sounds just like the exact same melody as a song from way back when called Putting on the Ritz. That little part sounds just like it. Putting on the Ritz by Taco, I think was his name, which is odd because that's just a frivolous song, but this song is definitely not frivolous. It's probably talking about World War One. I didn't really get into that at the start. It's weird because in the States we were barely involved in World War One, but England lost over 1 million people in it. It was just, there's 68 million people killed worldwide. It's still known as the Great War. And so that's what a lot of this is about, this album. And it also showed England was not the powerhouse it once was, that other countries could go toe-to-toe with them, which happens to every country eventually. So it starts out, the West's asleep, let England shake, weighted down with silent dead. I fear our blood won't rise again. So if you listen to this song, right, and you're not paying attention to the lyrics, you know what it's about, it sounds like this pleasant little song until you read the lyrics. Verse 3, until the day is ending and the birds are silent and the insects are courting, and by the shores heavy stones are falling. And the chorus, smile, smile, Bobby, with your lovely mouth. Pack up your troubles and let's head out to the fountain of death and splash about. Swim back, forth, back, laugh out loud. All kinds of instrumentation on here. PJ does the saxophone on here. She does the auto harp. You got a mellotron. You got a Rhodes. You got the xylophone I mentioned. You got bass harmonica by Mick Harvey. You got the trombone. Obviously, the drums. So we get this thing started out with a bang. Now we're going to move on to the last living rose. PJ told NME that this hymn to England is, quote, a reflection on this country, seeing it up against other countries. I was very pleased with the words of that song because it does feel very picturesque, very filmic in a way. Another very pleasant song sonically, not a lot lyrically. It's only a couple verses, but starts out, GD Europeans take me back to beautiful England, then kind of does this laundry list of things there at the last second verse. Let me watch nightfall on the river, the moon rise up and turn to silver, the sky move, the ocean shimmer, the head shake, the last living rose quiver. Instrumentally, again, we got PJ on the guitar and also on the sax. We got Mick Harvey on the organ. We got drums. We got the trombone. We got a lot of things packed into 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Definitely enjoyed that. Now we'll move on to The Glorious Land. It was the second single. Lyrically, the song refers to the militarism and the ongoing Afghan war. The lyrics in the refrain appear to refer to the disastrous effects of war. It says, what is the glorious fruit of our land? The fruit is deformed children. What is the glorious fruit of our land? The fruit is orphaned children. Several lyrics throughout the song, like how is our glorious country plowed, not by iron plows, are extracts from an untitled Russian folk song. Other translated lyrics from the same song mimic lyrics from The Glorious Land, such as our land is being plowed by horses' hooves and the glorious land is being sown with Cossack heads. These reworked lyrics, however, were noted by PJ as a credit on Let England Shake. Just an example, she was pulling from everywhere in this research. The Glorious Land, the most overtly political statement. The whole track, the instrumentation is almost menacing, almost driving. It fits perfectly what the lyrics are. How is our glorious country plowed, not by iron plows? Our land is plowed by tanks and feet. She repeats those lines. Oh, America, oh, England is the only thing on the chorus. How is our glorious country sown, not with wheat and corn? How is our glorious land bestowed? And then we get into the chorus again, that outro, which I'd read to you before. But what is the glorious fruit of our land? Its fruit is deformed children. Its fruit is orphaned children. And she finishes with its deformed children. So a very, and we get other voices coming in. You get the bugle in there. It's just well put together and definitely accomplishes its purpose. Now we're up to The Words That Maketh Murder, the lead single dealing with diplomacy, the ongoing conflicts in Afghanistan and World War. As with all the compositions on here, her main instrument is the auto harp on this one. Lyrically, it refers to the ongoing Afghan war and also makes several allusions to World War I and World War II. The lyrics also criticize diplomacy, especially in the final refrain that says, "What if I take my problems to the United Nations?" It's based on a lyric from Eddie Cochran's famous Summertime Blues. Harvey was granted permission to use the lyric and noted the inclusion in the album liner notes. Once again, she is given credit where credit is due. Let's check it out. The Words That Maketh Murder, the heaviest track on this album so far. And that is, that's a hard place to get to. She says, a lot of it was interesting, but the instrumentation on it was great. You got her and Mick Harvey just putting it in. She's doing the sax and the alto harp and mixing the bass harmonica. He's doing the bass. He's also doing the drums, some other percussion. The backing vocals of John Parrish and Mick, and they really play a prominent role in the song and add some depth to it that I really did enjoy. But I mean, she starts this out from the soldier's perspective, right? And a lot of people think this is from World War I. I've seen and done things I want to forget. I've seen soldiers like lumps of meat, blown and shot out beyond belief. Arms and legs were in the trees. I've seen and done things I want to forget, coming from an unearthly place, longing to see a woman's face instead of the words that gather pace. And then the chorus is just the words that maketh murder. These are the words. And she just keeps repeating that. At the very end of each chorus, it ends with the word murder. And then in verse 2, she gets in that thing, I've seen and done things I want to forget. She repeats that line 3 different times. So just a fantastic song for what it is. Not one I'm going to spin on repeat because it's so heavy, but it definitely gets its point across. Now we're up to the 5th track. All and Everyone. This track is one of the 3 songs, like the last one, that alludes to the 1950 battle for Gallipoli, a bungled attempt to seize Constantinople, which wiped out much of the Australian and New Zealand army in World War I. By far the longest track on here. All and Everyone. Very rich instrumentally. The trombone, obviously, is in there, and PJ's sax playing a big role. She's also on the auto harp. Organ there with Mick Harvey. Bass harmonica with Mick again. Okay, so I said the last song, The Words That Maketh Murder, was by far the heaviest song. This one said, Hold My Beer, because I'm going to destroy that. This song is, I mean, it is serious. Death was everywhere in the air and in the sounds, coming off the mounds of Bolton's Ridge, Odessa, Anchorage. Death was in the ancient fortress, shelled by a million bullets, from gunners waiting in the copses with hearts that threatened to pop their boxes. As we advanced into the sun, death was all and everyone. So it's really, she does a great job in this song of just painting a picture. Verse 4, death hung in the smoke and clung to 400 acres of useless beachfront. So just telling you, like, there's no reason to even fight over this land. A bank of red earth dripping down. Death is now and now and now. Death was everywhere and in the air and in the sounds. Oh, man, yeah. As last chorus, as we advance in the sun, as we advance in every man, as we advance in the sun, sing death to all and everyone. And this song, as much as any of them so far, show you the amount of research she did that I outlined in the intro. Like, she really knows what's up with this particular battle as well. And speaking of battles, we're on to the 6th song, On Battleship Hill. PJ told NPR about this song. One of the conflicts that affected me a great deal was the Gallipoli campaign, which is what we just, these past 2 songs are about too, in the First World War. Something about the dreadful mismanagement and the shocking waste, needless waste. I thought about it a lot, and it really affected me because to me, it had such resonance with the wars that are going on today. Boy, preach it, PJ. On Battleship Hill, heavy lyrics as you would expect, but sonically very pleasing. He's just remembering back the soldier on Battleship Hill's caved-in trenches. A hateful feeling still lingers even now, 80 years later. Cruel nature, cruel nature. The land returns how it's always been. Jagged mountains jutting out, cracked like teeth in a rotten mouth. On Battleship Hill, I hear the wind say, cruel nature has won again. They repeat that 4 different times. The backing vocalists, we got 3 of them now. We got the normal John Parrish and Mick Harvey. We also got Jean-Marc Buddy, and that added just a deeper tone to it, which I think needed to be there. It's a very short song lyrically, even though it's over 4 minutes in length. The lyrics are very short, drawn out. The lyrics are very deliberate in the way they're delivered, and I think that adds to the gravity of it. So a really good job on this one. Now we're going to go to the song England. I think we're going to dial it back a little bit on the seriousness scale. I don't know how you could ramp it up any more than that, but supposedly England's a love letter to PJ's home country. So let's check this one out. A much different song than what we've heard so far. Mainly just acoustic on here. She actually plays a violin on here, and you got several instruments, a mellotron, and those sorts of things, but they're barely in. They come in there almost 2/3 of the way through the song. No chorus in this song, as there isn't in most of these songs. I live and die through England. Through England it leaves a sadness. Remedies never within my reach. I cannot go on as I am. Withered vine reaching from the country that I love. England, you leave a taste, a bitter one. But at the end, the last verse, I have searched for your springs, but people, they stagnate with time, like water, like air. To you, England, I cling undaunted, never failing. Love for you, England. So kind of a song within a song, right? You feel the conflict in the song. She's not happy with everything England's done, but she still loves her country. At the start of the song, some backing stuff mixed in, and those vocals, it's not even vocals, it's just almost a wailing sound, and it comes back in on the third verse behind her when she's singing. Little Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries type stuff is what that reminded me of, but a nice one. Now we're going to go to In the Dark Places. It's about the meaningless wars that kills millions of young lives, and a salute as well as a farewell to them. That's what my notes tell me. Let's give it a listen. More rich instrumentally than the last few. Just once again, man, I mean, just a heavy song. We got up early, washed our faces, walked the fields and put up crosses, passed through the damn mountains, went hellwards, and some of us returned and some of us did not. So right from the perspective of a soldier has to get up, put up the crosses for his fallen comrades. In the fields, in the forest, under the moon and under the sun, another summer's passed before. So it's like this, it's a never-ending war. It just goes on. And now one man has, and now one woman has revealed the secrets of this world. The bridge, so our young men hid with guns in the dirt and in dark places. And then it ends out again with a male coming in now, and not one man has, and not one woman has revealed the secrets of this world. Once again, I know I'm a broken record on this, but just a heavy, heavy song. Now we're going to go to the 9th track, Bitter Branches. Bitter Branches. Guitar is just fantastic. John Parrish and Mick Harvey. The guitar drives this song in almost a manic type way, in a very good way. I think one of the things that I haven't mentioned a lot on this, I mean, I mentioned the instrumentation, how good it is, but the instrumentations match so well to the content of the song. Bitter Branches, she uses the tree motif to basically talk about the soldiers who are waving goodbye to their wives. They hold them and they go off into battle, and the wives don't know if they'll ever see them again. The bitter branches, the bitterness of that. So the more manic driving of the guitar works perfectly with this, because it kind of drives the despair. Some of the other songs that are so serious, they kind of drop down sonically so you can enjoy the lyrics more. So really good job on this one. Now we're going to go to the 10th track, Walking in the Wire. Features descriptive, shocking lyrics about dead bodies in First World War trenches. So I guess we're back to it, boys and girls, to get real serious. Well, that one was definitely dense lyrically, but sounded great sonically. And on this one, basically Mick Harvey was singing in harmony with her for most of the song. And Mick's all over this, a member of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Not any relation to PJ, by the way, just if you keep wondering that. I should have mentioned that. But, oh man, just talks about Walker sees the mist rise over no man's land. He sees in front of him a smashed up waste ground. There are no fields or trees, no blades of grass, just unburied ghosts are there hanging in the wire. Talking about no birds singing, no trees to sing from. Just this wasteland, you get this just vision, right, of this battlefield. She puts you right there of just that mass destruction and death. I mean, a really well done song. Now we're up to The Color of the Earth. So this one has Mick Harvey, I would say, singing lead, and the PJ comes in and harmonizes with him. This is more about Australia, which is fitting because that's where Mick is from, like the very first. It's a soldier who was in this war, right, in World War One, talking about his friend. Lewis was my dearest friend, fighting in the Anzac Trench, and Anzac stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, who managed to engage in trench warfare with the Ottoman Empire. So throughout this song, he talks about later in the dark, I thought I heard his voice calling for his mother and then me, but I still couldn't get to him. He's still up on that hill, 20 years on that hill, nothing more than a pile of bones, but I think of him still. If I was asked, I'd tell you The Color of the Earth that day, where we get the title of the song. It was dull and browny red, the color of blood, I'd say. Just another powerful, powerful song. And this album exists in a lot of different incarnations, right? And the research had the proper list, which this was actually the last song on the original album, but it's flipped on everything else you look at, and it's flipped on Spotify. There's another song on Spotify that I'm going to skip now called The Big Guns Called Me Back Again, because it barely has any downloads. It was just inserted in here. So the final song, we're up to that, and it's Written on the Forehead. Written on the Forehead. oddly catchy with the chorus repeated over, let it burn, let it burn, let it burn, burn, burn. And then in the backing, a lot of it, blood, 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 and fire. So the first half of the song is almost like two songs in one, because you've got the men singing that mantra underneath, and she's singing the lyrics in almost a treated vocal. And this one, she's kind of fast forward to the Persian Gulf War, most likely, because it starts out with people throwing dinars at the belly dancers. You're talking about a rack here in a sad circus by a trench of burning oil. People throw belongings to lifetime's earnings amongst the scattered rubbish and suitcases on the side. They're fleeing a war zone, right? The common man's fleeing the war zone to get out of there. So she's basically just saying it doesn't matter, we're letting it burn, burn, burn. So we're letting the oil and everything in that area burn, 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 blood, 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 and fire, and all the deaths in there. So a fitting way to end this album. Very pleasantly, that song was sonically. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks, which is very difficult on an album like this, right? Because, none of these songs are catchy by design. They're not meant to be catchy. The whole premise of this album is the atrocities of war. So I'm not going to go back and favorite some of these songs and spin them again, yet they're excellently done. So I'm going to go with Let England Shake, The Glorious Land, The Color of the Earth. Mick Harvey was fantastic on that. We'll give an honorable mention to On Battleship Hill, and the last song, an honorable mention, Written on the Forehead. Now we're going to come to my overall grade. This one's a very interesting, as heavy of an album content-wise, like lyrically-wise, as I've ever listened to. I don't know how I can get it heavier than this. She did a phenomenal job writing this album. Sonically, instrumentally, it all just works. The auto harp was a great, great addition for her, especially on this album. But everybody was on. And as I mentioned in the beginning, she didn't have everything all rehearsed out. And I think it helped with this, with an album like this. They just kind of played what they felt, and it really, really works. Every song is matched perfectly lyrically with instrumentation. So you feel the gravity of some, you feel the seriousness and kind of manicness of others. So overall grade on this album is an 8.5. I see why it won 16 different publications albums of the year in 2011. That said, this is something everyone should listen to and should read the lyrics as you're going. I will never listen to this album again, and that is not a down thing to it. It is a brilliant piece of art that I'm very, very glad that you brought to me, Mark. I appreciate everybody watching. If you like to support us in any way, like Mark does, the patrons make this channel go. Check out the link to our Patreon page below or on the end screen that's about to hit. As always, thanks, guys, and I will see you next time.